All right, today we're going to talk about the crystal reports. Crystal reports are a topic that our employers or the people that sit on our advisory committee tell us that they want graduates to at least have some experience with. I think if they had their druthers, you get a 3-credit class in crystal reports. Unfortunately, in order to do that, we'd have to buy crystal reports, which is expensive, and not sure 3 credits of it is worthwhile in every job. So our compromise is to include 1 unit, give you an introduction to it, and if you want more, you can always experiment with it. What Crystal Reports allows us to do, and we'll demonstrate this today, we'll get a chance. But what Crystal Reports allows us to do is generate pretty complicated reports with groupings and titles and page headers, and takes care of all that stuff for us without having to write a whole lot of code. We're going to write a little bit of code to make it work, but not a ton. In 2010, Crystal Reports was no longer included in the Visual Studio package. It used to be. Now, if you want it, you have to basically ask for it. You click on this link in my notes. In the previous class, we downloaded it from OneDrive. That failed for some people, I think because I downloaded a 32-bit. They're using 64-bit. If you go here and download it yourself, you're probably better off. Scroll down and click the first link in the upper left-hand corner of the table. I believe that's a fairly intelligent link that takes a look at your operating system, figures out whether you're using 32 or 64-bit, downloads the appropriate file for your computer. Drop it on your desktop, double-click it to install it. What this will do is modify your installation of Visual Studio. It takes a little while, I would say 15 minutes. It will modify your installation of Visual Studio to include Crystal Reports. Without it, nothing works. Not Crystal Reports, at least. I should quit changing the size back. So install all that. Everything's pretty much ready to go. Then what we discovered in the last class is you still need to do this configuring Visual Studio step. The installing Crystal Reports is a one-time bad deal. You install it on your laptop, your desktop, whatever you're using, your virtual machine, it's there, it's embedded inside of Visual Studio now. However, every single project needs to be told that it's using a legacy version of I'm not exactly sure of what all that stuff is in there, the target framework. But in order for your Crystal Reports to run, you need to make that change. All right, so I'm not going to talk about that change just yet. I'm going to wait for your stuff to download, get it installed. And if you haven't done so already, you might want to also go back to OneDrive and download Programming Logic in Class Unit 4. This pizza shop order is the most recent version of that. I think for you guys in the 4 o'clock class, it's pretty much the same as it was last time. But I did make a couple little changes to it. That's what I'm going to use as my starter. So we're going to add Crystal Reports to this database project. And it works pretty well. Let me pause here and, well, I'm going to leave the recording going. Unfortunately, you can't see it, but most of you have heard it already in class. For you, in this class, you'll see it. What we have to do to create a Crystal Report, is once again provide some kind of GUI access to the database. A report is just another graphical user interface. It's a GUI. Doesn't have any inputs, just a bunch of outputs, but it's still a user interface that we see. So in order to get the data, we're going to have to create a table adapter. And what I recommend, and it saves a lot of time for a lot of people, is that you create a table adapter that has exactly the fields in it that you need for your report. That makes creating a report easier because you just say, give me everything, and throw it in the report. We just have to rearrange it. So once your Crystal Reports have downloaded and installed, we're going to create a table adapter that has exactly in it what I want described up here on the screen. Create it with a customer name, an order date, the size, number of pies, coupons, and cheese sticks. Then, as always, we have to create a class to communicate with the data class. So we're going to create a business class to communicate with the data class, but it's going to be a special one dedicated to reports. By the time we're done next Tuesday, we're going to generate 4 or 5 different reports just to get experience with them. So we're going to generate different reports, and somehow I need to have a method that says go to the database, get me the data. We're going to embed it in here. Special class just for reports. So we're going to create that. Once we have that created, we're going to issue the command that says go get me that data. The data comes back, goes into this little mini data table. And now it's ready for us to display on the screen. Crystal reports themselves are not visible in Visual Studio. You have to create a new form. So that's what I have here is a new form called Form Reports. And then if you want to view a Crystal Reports, you put a Crystal Report Viewer in the form. So that's what the blue dotted line here is a Crystal Report Viewer. Then we're going to write some code. In form load on this document, we're going to generate a brand new Crystal Reports document. It's a new class that came with that stuff that you just installed. It's built in. We're going to create a report document. The report document is going to say, go get me the data. The business class is going to get the data, and now this report document points to that table with all its data. Then we link the report viewer to that document, and now we have a chain that gets me to the data. And do all that to make it run. We go through the process once, and then after yours are done, I'll go through it. I'll repeat the process. Because I'm guessing you still got a ways to go on the install. So I'm going to come over here, and let's slide this over so I can see it at the same time. Haven't launched anything yet, so here's my Unit 5 for Pizza Shop. And I've already installed it in the last class, so for me the Crystal Report Viewer is already there. The way you can tell it's available is you open up your form, go to the toolbox. Under Reports, you'll now see a couple of Crystal Reports Viewer and a Crystal Reports Document. That's how you know it worked. That's one way. So to follow through on what I have in my notes, the first thing I'm going to need is a new table adapter. So I'm going to the XSD, I'm going to create a table adapter, and again I'm going to repeat all of this after, at least maybe not record it, but I'm going to repeat all of this once your stuff is installed. I'm going to use the same connection. I'm going to use SQL, use my query builder. From this list I can see that I need both tables. I want the customer's last name and the first name, the order date, the size, the number of pies, the cheese sticks, no, the coupon and the cheese sticks, yep. Notice I can rearrange the order. Any order that you put them in here, they're going to show up in that order later. I'm doing that on purpose. My notes tell me I don't need to order by. When we build a report, in the report we designate how data is going to be sorted. Doing it here is pretty much redundant because you're going to override it in the report anyways. So I skip the order by. I want to concatenate the last name and the first name, so I'm going to do the standard stuff there, plus a comma and a space. Call this customer. Click on OK. Next. Fill next. I don't have any primary keys. Do you want to add one? No. Finish. Over here it says call this query order report. Okay. Park it somewhere convenient, save all so these don't overlap. Some of you have been having that trouble. Your table adapters overlap, they're the wrong size, things are hidden. This one's hiding a few things. I could make it a little bigger. As long as you do a save all, not a save all, it will save the layout of this in addition to the stuff that's in there. All right, so now this is kind of how it's been going in all of Unit 3 with the data component, right? We build a table adapter. Then I'm going to build a class to go with it. So I'm going to add a class. Here's the class, not a class diagram, just a class. I'm going to call it CLS reports. And this is going to be a class that does nothing more than really manage our reports. So whenever a report needs data, it calls the reports class, and the reports class goes and gets the data. That's basically all it's going to do. We are never going to instantiate it. It doesn't have any properties or members. It's just a container for data communication methods. Here it is. Now for every report, I'm going to generate a method to go get the report data, just like the methods that we built before. And in the last class, I actually cheated. I opened this up, went in here, and said, where's one where, oh, there's one where I need to get data. I need that basic stuff. Public static. So let's start with that. Public static. Remember, static means you don't call this with an instantiation. A pizza order, a report. No, you just simply say reports. Dot. What do we want to call this? According to my notes, it's called, no, a little lower. Nope. Nope. Where's my class? Looks like I created a report before I created the class. Does that make sense? Did I create the class up higher? No. What the heck? Sorry. No charts. That's the report itself. Order report data. So I created the class second in my notes. I think it makes more sense to do it here. So order report data. That's the name of my method. It needs a table adapter and a data table. So VRTA, my table adapter variable, is a new DS. Oops, I forgot something up here. This is going to return data. Remember the one I was cheating? I was looking at this. See, it returns this big ugly data thing. So I got to add that here too. So DS orders is what it's going to replace. And I got extra space in there. DS orders. Dot query report data table right there. That's what it's going to send back, is that little table. Remember my diagram, there's a little waffle in there. I'm going to create one of those tables. This is going to be a new, now I'm back to the table adapter. The table adapter is a new DS order table adapters. Whenever you're talking table adapters, you use a table adapter class. Dot query order report data table parentheses because I'm instantiating. The red mark up here is because I said I was going to return something. I haven't done it yet. I also need a data table. It's going to be one of these. Just steal that one for right now. Parentheses semicolon. Then if I look back at the other code, we said ta.fill the data table. And send the data table back. So for every report that I want to generate, got the new. For every report that I want to generate, I'm going to basically copy this and change the names of the table adapters to for that report. We'll do that next Tuesday. Today we're going to have time to build one report. It's a method, so I should describe it. This method gets the data required for the orders report. So now I'm working my way backwards. I've got a table adapter, got a business class that goes and gets that. Now it's time to start building a report. When one of you is done installing Crystal Reports, raise your hand so I know we're that far. Oh, well then it's a good place to stop, or at least pause and let you guys catch up. Okay, so now we have our business class all taken care of. We have an XSD that can get the data for us. Now what we need is a report to put this data in. Actually, we need more than that. In addition to the report, we're going to need a form that's going to hold that report, because the report itself can't just be displayed. It has to be embedded inside of a form. But let's start with the report. To create a Crystal report, we create a new object. A Crystal report is an object, just like the classes are objects, just like the forms are objects. A report is an object. Because we installed the add-on to Visual Studio, we can now go to add new items over here. It's still that second button, same place we went to do the class. Drop that down and add a new item. Under new items, you should be able to go to reporting and see the fancy dancy Crystal reports icon. Yes? Okay, we want one of those. So select it, and then down here, we're going to call this CR orders. I like to put a prefix on it. That way, it's going to show up in the Solution Explorer, just like my classes and my forms and my XSD. If you put the same prefix on all the reports, they all show up together, and you can find the reports you're looking for quicker. You don't have to put the extension on there. It'll do it for you. Visual Studio will do it. And what's cool about the reports is when you say I need to make a new report, it just stops and messes everything up. No, there we go. There's a wizard to guide you through it. If you've taken the Access class, you may have done a couple of quick reports there, but most Access classes that we teach Microsoft Office today do not get into customized reports. If you've done them before, this is very, very similar to that. Notice the high quality graphics, the modern look, if it's 1994. All right. This has not been updated. It's free. It works. It gives us the introduction to Crystal reports. The new version, the actual version of the 500, 600, 700,000 whatever dollar program, obviously has been much improved. But I have not seen it. I've seen screenshots. It looks nicer. We're going to do two types of reports in class. We're going to do standard reports, and we'll do some mailing labels. We won't get to a crosstab. So I'm going to start with standard report. And the wizard just guides us through. The next thing we need to tell the wizard is, where's the data? The data is part of my project, so expand the project data. ADO.net is our access connection. You can expand that, and you should see your query. There's our order report query. If you double click it, it'll jump over to the selected tables, or you could click the arrow here and that'll move it over. So the wizard's going to guide us through. Okay, here's our data. Next, which fields do you want? Customized table adapter, right? All of them. Hit the double arrow to the right. If you wish, you can rearrange these in case you put them in the wrong order or something in your table adapter. Like cheese sticks, we accidentally flipped them. I could click on coupon and move it down, or I could click on cheese sticks and move it up. The more work you do here in the wizard, the closer you get these to the order that you want them, the less customization you'll have to do when we start working on the report itself. And you'll find when we get there that the customization can be very tedious. Next. Do we want any groups going on here? What we mean by grouping is very similar to what you've learned in the SQL class, where I can group by certain things. So I could group here by the size of pizzas. Put all the large pizzas in a group in my report. Put all the small pizzas in a group. In this case, and we could do customer, right? Give me all the orders for every one of the customers in the database. Instead, let's do dates, because as a business owner, I want to know how's it going on each date or each week or each month. I can see those kinds of things. So we're going to group by date. You can double click it or click the arrow to send it over. And I think that's all we need for grouping. You can group within groups. I think that's beyond the scope of what I'm asking you to do in the course. Next. What statistics do you want? You only get statistics if you group. If you don't group, there's no statistics. Initially, Crystal Reports just looked and said, hey, that's a number. Hey, that's a number. That's a number. You probably want me to add those up for you, don't you? Thank you very much. I do. In addition to that, though, I want to know how many people or how many pizzas did I sell in each group. So I want a count of customers. So I'm going to send the customer over. Gets added to the top. Give me the maximum customer. What does that mean? Nothing. Drop that down. I want a distinct count. If Nathan ordered 3 pizzas in a week, I only want to see his name once, or I only want to count him once. I served 20, 25, whatever distinct customers this month. So choose distinct count. It kind of combines 2 things from RDD, right? Next, if we wanted to, we could designate top and bottom. I only want the top 5. I only want the bottom 5. Nope, don't need any of that. Never will. We'll save charts for next week. Skip the charts. Do you want to, where am I here? Do you want to filter by anything? Now in my notes it says we should filter by the 2000s. Anything that's in 2000. So I didn't do that in the other class. Let's give it a shot. It says here, is it any value? No, I want to filter this so I only see the 2000, I want to say it's 12. Cheese sticks, select the order, add all the fields, move the cheese sticks, group by order, date, top, and 2012 orders only. So not any value. It has to be, how are we going to do this? How about between? Pound 1/1/2012. Remember, we're in C# here. Actually, the pounds are left over from Visual Basic. This may be, for all I know, Crystal Reports is written in Visual Basic, but we put pounds around dates in Visual Basic. We didn't do that in C#, did we? I don't think so. We had to do the new date thing. So that's where the pound signs came from. And 12/31/2012. So even personally, you know what? Now that you've seen it, I think I'm going to pull it out. If I wanted to only see the 2012s, why didn't I put it in my query? This report is only going to work for 2012. In the future, it will be possible for us to add parameters to these reports. That's not going to be part of your requirements for the course, but I think I'm going to lecture on it just so there's a recording. We can put parameters in so when you run the report, the program says what range of dates do you want when you run the program, not ahead of time. So let's skip that. Go back to any. Actually, just take this guy and say, go back. We don't need any filtering. Next. And now we have these awesome styles that we can choose from. Not sure how awesome they are, but I'm going to stick with shading. In the future, you can experiment with the others. This is kind of a look at what it's going to look like. It's up to you. Pardon me?
Maroon teal will at least
maroon teal, kind of like mid-state? Okay, we'll do the maroon teal just for the recording. Finish. I hope you like these colors when it's done. And there's our report. Kinda. What is this? This is a description of what we just ran through in the wizard. Reports are made up of bands. There's a report header band. There's a page header band. There's a details band, and so on. This is also very similar to Access reports when you customize them. The report header band appears once at the beginning of the report. It appears below the page header. It doesn't look like it, but the page header appears at the top of every page. So it's very similar to my instructor's notes that I have here, and the other class saw them, so I'll just do this as a guide. All right, here's my page header, or my report header, excuse me, but it's still underneath the page header, so that works the same way. Page header and the page footer appear on every page, at the bottom and the top. Then there's a group header. We said group by date. So for every group of dates, there's a header that describes it. There's a footer that describes it again, and then here's the statistics that we requested. So at the bottom of every group, we get totals. There's a report footer that appears once at the end of the report, above the page footer. And finally, there's a detail band. These are actually fields. You can tell by the square brackets, but even that's confusing. But these are fields. Every one, this is one record. If there were 17 pizza orders on this day, we'd get 17 rows for that day. So the detail band is where that gets repeated over and over and over again. Everything else, group appears once at the top of the group, bottom of the group, top of the bottom of the report, top of the report. So this is kind of what we asked for, but what does it look like? On the bottom of the screen, there's a main report preview. You can click on that, and it kind of gives you a look at it, but really it's lying. And thank you so much for picking teal and maroon. None of this data is real. There's no 2014 data in my database. I'm sure on Saturday I didn't sell $23,000 worth of pizza or whatever, or that size is 23,000, whatever that is. So it kind of gives you a look at it, but it really doesn't help much. It says that customers chopped off. In a minute we'll see that, no, it's not. So I'm not a big fan of this preview. I hope they've fixed that in the latest versions of this program. So now we need some way to display this. We have a report. We need a way to link it to the business class. Reports don't have any code behind them, by the way. If you double click any of these things, nothing happens. You don't generate event handlers. Reports are simply views of data. There's no events to be handled. So what we need is some way to display this. The only way to display a report is on a form. So let's add a new form to our project. Once again, click the new item button up here, second one in the toolbar. Let's add a Windows form. You could say add a new item and then pick Windows form, but this makes it a little easier. And I'm going to call this FRM reports. Add it. And now I have a new form. That form obviously can't display a report unless we tell it how. It's just like any other form we've had before. First of all, I already gave it a name, so it should have a nice name. It does. Oh, one thing we want to change. When I look at reports, they're usually quite large on the screen. So I like my report form to go full screen. Here's how you do that. Go to the last property, the Windows state property. You can change this at runtime if you wish, but we'll do it right here. And I'm going to say you're maximized. So when this form launches, it will automatically fill the screen. We can make it bigger here if we want to. It doesn't make any difference. It's still going to maximize when we run it. In order for this form to display a report, we need to add a report viewer to it. So let's go to the toolbox. And I showed you at the beginning of the class that once you add Crystal reports, there is a reporting feature here before, but now it has a Crystal report viewer and a Crystal report document object available. Those were not there before we installed Crystal reports. Double click the viewer. And it will automatically fill your entire form. So now I have a form that maximizes to the screen, and I have a report viewer that automatically fills the form. Notice that the viewer comes with a bunch of buttons. All of these are pre-coded. We can change pages, we can filter, we can print, we can do all kinds of stuff. Search, all built into the viewer. Very powerful little class that we've sucked in here. I think my notes tell me we should name that something. So let's get caught up here with the notes. Add form reports. We're supposed to call it the Crystal Report Viewer. So click on that viewer and then change its name, because we are going to refer to it later in code, to the CR viewer. Just nice and short. Pardon me? I clicked on the viewer itself here. It looks like I'm clicking on the form. I'm not. That's the viewer. It just sucks up the whole form. So now we have that box on the left-hand side on the board over there. We've got a form, and inside it, the dashed blue box on the view or on the board over there, inside it we have a viewer, and the viewer is going to do all our heavy lifting for us. Before we do that, I just remembered something I needed to do. Oh, I want this form to automatically launch, because we're going to be testing 3, 4, 5 different reports. And I don't want to waste my time going to the pizza order form and then having to click on reports someplace to get here. So for testing purposes, let's come down here to the bottom where it says Program CS. You might remember you did something similar in your welcome screens. Double click that, it'll open up. let's copy this application run command, then comment it out. That way we can put it back later. Don't forget to comment that out. I think John Pinter last hour left it in there and it ran his reports, and as soon as he closed the reports, it launched the pizza order thing, which is okay, but it was a pain because he had to close two. Paste that back in here, and instead of launching with a new pizza form, we're going to launch with a new reports form. So now we hit run, the report form is going to show up. But, okay, so you can close that, save it. That's great, but how does this viewer know which report I want to display? We have to tell it. Right now, we've got that box over there, but there's no connection. So if I run this right now, I'm going to get an empty report. We need to do the connection. To do the connection, we have to get to form load. This thing's clogging up my whole form, so I'm going to go to the title bar here, double click. There's my form load event. You can skip the comment in your example if you wish. Now inside here, we're going to borrow code from my notes. We already built the class, so we're ahead there. Here's the code that we need to duplicate to make the connection that you see up there on the board. I need to create, first of all, I need to actually create one of my forms. So I'm going to create one of my report document forms. I'm sorry, I'm going to create one of my reports. Oh, wait a minute, I thought we added one over here. This is a template, this is a class. I have created a Crystal Reports template. Just like your class. It's not a real one, it's like a cookie cutter. Now we want to actually create it. So we need to create that guy. So that's what that is. It is a Crystal report. This is our name. So I want the CR orders report, and I'm going to call it my report document. I just use the same name over and over and over again. And that's a new CR orders. So this one looks longer, but that's the same command. It's just my name of the report to CR orders. And I always use that variable name. So now I've actually made one of those reports. That's the document that you see in blue over there. I said, make me one, instantiate it. Did it. Now I want to go get the data. So I'm going to create a temporary variable called DT. Its type is data table. Notice it's a kind of a waffle looking thing up there. It's a table. I'm going to call it DT, and it's going to be equal to, I'm now going to tell the business class, hey, go get me the data. We're looking at those blue arrows. Go get me the data, bring it back, put it in this DT. We call the report class. It's a new class for CN that we just made. We made that a little while ago. Inside there is an order report data method that says, go get me the data that I need for my report. Put it in this temporary variable called DT. Now I need to link the DT, the waffle, to that document. So my RPT document has a data source, and this is bizarre because we have to say set the data source instead of just data source. And in parentheses, what do we want to set it to? The DT that I just got right here. This has got my report, a copy of the report data in it. Link it to the report, which is that blue guy down there in the picture. And then finally, my report viewer, CR viewer, dot report document, or is it source document? I forget. Report source, all the above. Report source is equal to report doc. And you have to do it in that order because until all the data is linked, if you link this ahead of time, it doesn't have the data in it. So you do have to do all of these 4 commands in that order. Instantiate the report. Go get the data. Put the data in the report and then link the report to the viewer. Go. Don't bother. Grinding, grinding, grinding. And it says, I don't think so. Got close. Better not work. Please don't work. Crash. Thank you. The reason it crashed is because, remember, those of you that were here, in my notes earlier, it says, it seems that this crystal report that we're using is kind of old and crusty. You can tell by the look of it, right? Which means it uses some legacy C#, legacy Visual Studio code, and our project is not set up to use that. I was curious in the last class on whether I even needed to still do that, because I thought maybe there's a new crystal report and maybe the new Visual Studio. Nope. As you saw, it still crashes. I'm going to copy this because I can, and then I'll put it up on the screen so you can copy it. But where we need to go to fix this, we need to do two things. First of all, go to the properties in your Solution Explorer, go to the application on the left-hand side, and make sure that I'm still running, sorry. Make sure that the target framework does not say client profile. I have yet to see one that does, but a couple of years ago they were saying that. If they say client profile, the crystal reports don't work. So just make sure it says framework something. So mine's okay. Then we need to go down, no, we need to go into the app config file. That's where this startup command is. App config. And here's the startup command that's wrong. I'm going to paste the right one in there, and then you guys can copy it. You could probably leave the startup tag that's there. One mistake that a lot of people made is they put an angle bracket here to close it. Nope, it starts here and it ends all the way down there. And don't forget these slashes, and don't go mixing up my numbers either. So just go ahead and type that.
Type from startup to
And this is called end startup. See the slash? This is XML, which is a cousin to HTML. This is the starting tag. This is where the startup stuff starts. Here's the startup stuff. Here's where it ends. That's what that means. So from here to there, make sure you have that and nothing else. I'm going to finish the recording, and then you can finish typing that. Then I'm going to almost immediately start a new one. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you delete the portion that says like skew equals
Whatever was there, maybe it's easier just to delete it. But this is all you should have left for startup. You can cheat if you got my notes open. Just make sure you cheat well. This is what was there before. So no, you don't need the skew, but you do need the legacy stuff in the startup tag. So it might be easier just to delete that and retype it, and this is what it's supposed to look like. This you have to do for every project. Installing Crystal Reports is a one-time bad deal. You install it, Visual Studio now has it embedded. But this customizing your project to talk to this old crusty version of Crystal Reports, you have to do everything a single time. As far as I can tell, the rest of our project's unaffected by that. At this point, it should run. And the picture on the board gets put into place. We create the form. We create the report document. We ask the business class to go get the data. It gets it. We link it to the report. We show it in the viewer, and ta-da, beautiful teal and red stuff. But this report's got a few problems. Why are all the titles underlined? Why don't they have spaces in them? Because those are the field names. The number of pizzas is 12.0. I don't think so. There's the date. There's the date again. Look at the dates. Remember we said group by date. Every week. Crystal Report did that by default. When we said group by a date field, it said you probably want every week. No, I want every month. So we have to fix that. I don't know what else might need to be fixed. There's a lot of oh, I don't like the times here. That's kind of goofy. How do we fix this stuff? And there's one other thing. Notice, where's my totals for this group? On the next page. That's not good. I got totals on one page and the report or the group and the details on the other page. Probably not too good. But again, notice the navigation buttons. We can flip through pages. We can go to the end. We can go to the beginning. We can zoom in. And there's even a print button here. And if we had printers installed, this automatically has already been coded to go out, find what printers are installed, and say, which printer do you want? So the user gets to preview these, and if they think it's really lovely, then they can print it, and off it goes. Obviously, you can't print in here. So what we're going to do when I stop the recording and give you just a real quick stretch break is now go back to, this is all done, the app config. Did you all get a copy? You got it? Okay. Then we're going to go back to the report. Here's the report that we created. We created using a wizard. It's all the recording. And this is the foundation of that report that we just looked at. This got put into 20 pages by the time we were done. But this describes how the report is laid out. So here's the date that I didn't like. I can change it. Here's the title head, or here's the column headings that aren't quite right. I can change it. Here's the numbers that have decimal places in them. I can change them. We'll do that in a little bit. So if you need it, take a break.